Hey guys, hope you're well. Jack Corsalis here. What I'm going to do is show you some industry groups and stocks that I think are displaying a lot of relative strength. So we're going to be looking at the industry group chart, and then we're going to be dialing it in and looking at some of the strongest stocks within those strongest industry groups. This is going to center around oil and gas industry groups and also the coal industry group as well. That is where on a short-term basis I'm seeing a lot of strength. I'm going to be showing you the Market Smith charts there. Today's video sponsor, discounted trial available in the comments below if you're interested in that. So let's jump straight on into it. Going to first and foremost show you the industry group charts that are getting my attention. So the first one here, this is oil and gas international exploration and production. So what am I looking at when I'm looking for strong groups? Now the first thing that my eye is actually drawn to is the relative strength line. So you can see the relative strength line here since kind of Q3 Q4 of 2020 has actually been in a long-term uptrend. So the long-term RS trend is up, the intermediate term trend over the last couple of months, 3 months or so, is up as well, and the shorter term momentum at the RS line is up, so in the most recent weeks as well. So we can see the acceleration here. Now if we take a look here from a basing perspective, we can see we put in a low here, we bounce, we put in a high low. High lows in trends and all developing bases are obviously bullish, and then we're potentially building out this large course here. So we can see over here previously, okay, you see how you come down here, you bounce, high low, and then you kind of tighten up here and then break out. And this is what I'm seeing across many oil and gas industry groups. Now last week was a very strong week indeed. Now if I just go through a couple of other ones in terms of oil and gas royalty trust here, take a look at the RS line. It's starting to break out of this base here. These are all weekly chart, has a history of being able to run pretty darn well as well. This is oil and gas US exploration and production. RS line, short term, intermediate term, long term, is trending up here. We bounce, put in this high low. Now it's potentially starting to tighten up. A lot of causality here because we're building a big base on the weekly chart instead of just the daily chart. Another one, oil and gas machinery and equipment. So putting in these high lows, we come down, bounce, high low, bounce, high low. Look how the RS line is turning up, potentially setting up a break of this downward trend line. Oil and gas refining, so we can see short-term, intermediate term, long-term trend turning up here, putting in these structural high lows. They are bullish, potentially could break this downwards trend line. So the point kind of is here, this is Canadian exploration and production, potentially building this base, RS line turning up. The point of looking at the industry groups is if the industry group itself, this is a Weinstein point, if the industry group itself is building a base and showing relative strength, there are probably stocks within those groups that are very strong and building some bases, which we'll come on to in a couple of minutes. So look strong. Oil and gas integrated puts in this structural high low, potentially could break this downwards trend line in a couple of weeks. Look at the RS line turning up. And then finally energy coal as well. I'm going to show you 3 coal stocks which I think are the strongest. See how this RS line is turning up here. We pull down, we bounce, okay, put in this high low, and then you've had 2 bullish weeks in a row, potentially setting up this this base breakout in coming weeks. So let's then go into Market Smith itself. We're going to start off with the 3 coal stocks, then we're going to go into the oil and gas stocks. So as I was blabbering on about there, if the industry group itself is building a large base showing relative strength, then I want to be looking at the individual stocks within that group and trying to pick off the strongest of the strong stocks. So if we start here with AMR from a chart standpoint here, so from a technical standpoint, okay, we can start to see that the stock is tightening up, puts in this high low, bounces off the key moving average. The RS line versus the market, this blue line is very strong. Then what I like to do, okay, is take a look at this green line here. So the green line that you see, okay, this kind of jagged green line is the stock versus its own industry group. So what is this telling me? Well, the industry group is strong. We know that. The RS is there. It's potentially building a large weekly base, energy coal. And then we're trying to then look for the strongest stock within those industry groups, the kind of 1, 2, or 3 strongest stocks within those industry groups. How do we do that? What's an efficient way? It's focusing on the stock versus its own industry group. So this is comparing the stock to its kind of brother and sister stocks within the industry group. So we have a strong RS line here, this green line, that's telling me on a short, intermediate and long-term basis, the stock is very strong versus its own brother and sister stock, so to speak. With AMR here, it has a history of being able to break out and run well. Okay, you can then see it from here. Okay, you can see it from here. Take a look how these RS lines are turning up each time into those breakouts as well. So I like that the history the stock has a history of being able to run. So while the well, the index, if I just clear that, see how the S&P 500 is pulling down here, this black line, but the stock is actually rallying like this. That is that relative strength, the outperformance. Very high RS rating of 99, 3-month RS rating of 96 as well. If you then take a look here, this is something that I like to dial into, is looking at the sequential growth or not if the stock is decreasing, but in terms of the sequential growth of the quarter-over-quarter fund ownership. So we can see here for the last 8 quarters, generally speaking, okay, the growth of the fund ownership has been that, going from 66 funds to 289 funds. This is a stock that is being accumulated, is very strong versus the market. And then if we look at some of those can slim characteristics, ROE, return on equity 77%, triple digit sales for the last 3 quarters, triple digit earnings for the last 4 quarters. Estimates, big breakout year in terms of 2022, because the stock's gone from losing money to $15 a share last year, 2021, to then earning $83 a share, 447% increase. I like to see that big breakout year in terms of the estimate. So AMR, that is one that I'm keeping a close eye on. I'll be much quicker on the other ones. This one here, Consol Energy, really strong stock. Take a look at these RS lines, potentially starting to base out, putting in these high lows. So what I'm watching and waiting for is, if you've seen some of my other videos, I'm now watching and waiting for what I call that trigger bar, whether that be a trigger bar on the weekly chart, whether that be a trigger bar on the daily chart as well, preferably tying them in. So that trigger bar forming on the key moving averages, volume drying up, so I can look to take that asymmetric or reversible trade. This is more just an overview of some of the stocks on my radar. This one here, much smaller company, American Resources. See how these RS lines are turning up? It's potentially looking interesting. Maybe a low pivot around $3. You had triple digit sales, for the last 4 quarters in a row. So let's go on to the oil and gas stocks. So these are the ones which I think are the strongest of the strong. Now you've got Oxy, very public that Warren Buffett has the go ahead to take a 50% stake in the company. So therefore you'd think a lot of the shares outstanding are going to be in quote unquote strong hands. Warren Buffett obviously is kind of one of his sayings was his favorite holding time is forever. I don't know if he's going to hold it forever or not, but my point is that there are strong hands moving into this stock. You have the likes of Fidelity, high quality growth fund. Okay, you see how they've been increasing their position for the last 3 quarters. You have general growth in terms of the quarter-over-quarter fund ownership. RS lines turning up, potentially this big weekly base, really strong reversal bar last week, and then take a look at these higher lows building. So this is the type of stock on my radar. Triple digit earnings for the last 5 quarters, big breakout year in terms of the earnings per share, very liquid, 65 billion. So one on my radar, but again, it needs to tighten up, provide that optimal entry point. A little less, one which is potentially a little less known is YPF. I think this one is interesting. Argentinian-based company, triple-digit earnings for the last 2 quarters. Big breakout year here for the earnings per share, up 833%. And then take a look here. This is really interesting. See these multiple up weeks in a row. Hardly any give back on the pullback here. So potentially setting up a high type flag. Look at the volume coming through as well. So high type flag potentially forming on the daily. Can it just tighten up in here a little bit? That is one which is well and truly on my radar. COP. So we'll load this one up here. So another interesting thing that you're seeing, you've got Fidelity in there, and you're seeing this with a lot of these oil and gas stocks. These high quality funds in recent quarters have generally been increasing their position, either establishing a position and or increasing a position. So you've got JP Morgan large cap growth in there, taking a position in Q2 of 2022. They actually went from having no position to buying around about 6.75 million shares, now over 7 million shares, and Fidelity are now up to just under 7 million shares as well. The RS line is beginning to turn up here, certainly has been turning up versus the market. Again, it's building higher lows, but it just now needs to tighten up, provide that entry point. But I think that's strong. LNG I think is really strong. Fidelity in there accumulating. Don't know if they're on the phone to Warren Buffett. They're seeing what Buffett's saying, who knows, right? But look at the RS lines versus the market versus the industry group. Triple digit sales for the last 4 quarters, triple digit earnings, massive breakout year expected next year, going from losing money to earning $9 a share this year to earning $19 a share in 2023. Stock has a history. See how tight it gets in here. Base breakout, so on and so forth. Downward trend line breakout in there. But can this one just tighten up? That's on my radar. Oil and gas, transportation and pipeline. Let's do some other ones. MPC, this one that I'm keeping an eye on. Take a look at these RS lines here, the earnings there, the sales there. I think that's really strong. Let me whiz through some of these. Devon Energy, I think this one is really strong. Take a look at the RS lines versus the market versus the group. Triple digit earnings for the last 6 quarters. You have out of the last 4 out of 5 quarters, you've got triple digit sales. Breakout year with the earnings per share estimates. Looks very, very strong. BSM. This one is really strong as well. See this base building here, structural high low while the index has been making lower lows. I think this looks very strong. Triple digit earnings, triple digit sales, breakout year there for the estimates as well. TDW. This is another one. Look at the RS lines versus the stock zone industry group versus the market. Can this just kind of tighten up there, starting to build the higher lows? See a breakout in here. I think I had an entry in there or an entry in here. One of those base breakouts, but looks very, very strong indeed. The next one is MER. So Murphy Oil, again, RS line versus market turning up, industry group short term turning up as well, puts in this structural high low. Can that tighten up? Earnings there, sales there, estimates there look strong. MRO. This one looks strong as well. Take a look at these RS lines. Can this just see how the strength of this bar last week? Can it now just tighten up and potentially break out? And that was MRO. Let's do Val. Valaris, this one very strong. So it was trading before this, but it must have re-IPO'd or something like that. But RS lines turning up here, still a little bit choppy, but putting in these high lows. So it's now just a case of watching and waiting for the stock to tighten up, volume dry up, that kind of VCP characteristic. But that looks very strong. And the fact that we're seeing so much strength in the oil and gas industry, to my mind, it's the market trying to tell us something. GLNG builds this VCP in here on the weekly chart. See how it starts putting in these high lows, tightening up. Look at the volume coming through on the breakout. Okay, see that volume coming through, and now can it just tighten up potentially for a low pivot? See how it's starting to put in these higher lows again. Just needs to tighten up. Big breakout year expected for the earnings share next year. And then the last one that I'll show you guys is OVV. So RS lines look pretty darn strong, especially versus the market. Relatively flat versus the stocks and industry group, but I like the base building. High low in here, nice reversal candlestick off the lows there. Really strong closes on the last 2 weeks. Now can it just tighten up? So what I'm watching for this week is for these oil and gas stocks to tighten up, both in terms of the weekly chart, both in terms of the daily chart as well. Get nice and tight, price consolidate around key moving averages, volume dry up, RS is there, and then target those asymmetric reversible trades. Take a look at the estimates. Big breakout year this year and next year. Earnings are there, sales are there, fund ownership has generally been increasing as well. So I think this is really interesting. And a lot of these oil and gas stocks a couple of weeks ago, they looked terrible. They were breaking down on the low. So this is why it's very important to be adaptable and flexible in your mindset, for just analyze what is going on from a price and volume perspective, understanding relative strength. Okay, is the money flowing here? Is the money flowing there? Where is it flowing? It's always changing. So this is why it's important to change your mindset very quickly. So 2 weeks ago, when they're going out on the lows, I have no interest in oil and gas stocks, other than if a couple of springs set up. But now we can start to see the strength coming back in the last couple of weeks. The volume is there as well. The RS is there as well. So this is a very key area of the market for me to be focusing on. If they fall away, then I have no interest in them. But if they're setting up, building large bases, I want to be very dialed into where is the strength in the market. So I'll wrap it up there, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.